Bowl, the rise of Azath. It's also time for us to visit other league foes as we leave the comfort zone of our divisions and start the very important and difficult trek from now until week 12, where tiebreakers for future playoff races are won or lost. It is usually this stretch of games that separates the contenders from the pretenders. And we also enter this chapter with just 2 undefeated teams and only 1 winless team, which is crazy to think about after 3 weeks of play. That means we will absolutely see more jumbling this week and may not get real clarity on races for many weeks still. It should be a fun and nerve-wracking ride for all of us in this league. For the outsiders, you will probably just have a blast watching the train wreck that is fantasy football and in this league. But before we check into all of the matchups this week, we first visit the destination of our game of the week as AR's ayahuasca plant travels to play my Dark Ridge Dreamers at my home, the Icy Caverns of Varangr, in the Battle of Ganymede and Europa Division teams.
We're very excited to tell you about the next stop on our tour, the Icy Caverns of Varangr, another spot on Europa. As you know, Europa is a top layer of ice, but there are sections with caves. Some of these caves create a big network of tunnels that explorers use to create temporary shelters and exploration camps. Varangr, which is a name that ended up in ancient Scandinavian ancestry due to the explorers going to the ancient Earth, was a ship captain that lost an entire unit due to a space virus that was accidentally brought on board. Varangr survived due to an odd defect in the brain that kept the virus from replicating. It also allows Varangr to communicate telepathically and to visualize areas of exploration well in advance. It is some sort of mutation in their alien race that is rare, but instead of being shunned, the affected usually become captains, explorers, spies. But the virus was unknown and it led to Varangr getting marooned on Europa until it was deemed safe to be rescued. Varangr spent much time, half a life, exploring these caverns and communicating back to the home planet. The communication suddenly became erratic, however. Messages of frozen DNA, then growth, then monsters. Varangr was convinced that there was something in the ice, something that was trapped and that was released by curiosity. However, later through telepathy, Varangr said the communications with the creatures made it seem like they weren't even real, a figment of an imagination that could manipulate reality. And there were mentions of the caverns being alive themselves. The transmission suddenly stopped though, and by the time the rescue team came, they found Varangr frozen in the cavern walls in a horrified state. But when they came back to check Varangr out, no one remained, almost as if the walls themselves consumed what was left. So to the one who calls this place home right now, and to all those who visit, don't let your imaginations run wild, and please examine the cavern walls. We would love to know if these rumors are true.
This is a Game of the Week matchup that has a rivalry award attached, as league newcomer AR's ayahuasca plant might be a rookie, but there is a family history with my Dark Ridge Dreamers, as we're cousins. So we'll be playing a huge game in the league where AR's ayahuasca plant will hope to avoid dropping to 1-3 out of the Ganymede division that boasts one of the undefeated teams, and my Dreamers, which look to be undefeated, out of the Europa division. We'll also be playing for bragging rights and for the Tree of Nani rivalry award, named after our grandmother. My Dreamers enter with a 67% chance to win based on the computer projections. Kyler Murray versus Aaron Rodgers might be big if someone can get 3 touchdown passes. The Packers defense versus the Broncos defense will be another key spot because both have good matchups on paper. AR's ayahuasca plant needs to monitor the health of David Montgomery, and the Dark Ridge Dreamers need to choose the correct wide receiver combo. But of course, there are two players that could be the difference here. We're going to break those down right now. For the visiting AR's ayahuasca plant, look no further than running back James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Robinson's been a surprise so far in that many believed he would actually lose work this year to rookie Travis Etienne, who actually had a Lisfranc injury last year and missed all of last year. People forget about that. Now, while Robinson also had an Achilles injury, which limited him, but he does have more experience coming in at running back. Everybody remembers his breakout campaign in 2020, so you got to be hoping for things like that. Well, this year he's already got 51 carries this season. That's more than a third from last season, due to his injury, of course, and more than a fifth from 2020 already, which was kind of a surprise. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry and has 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also still gets work in the passing game, despite the presence of Etienne. He has 6 catches and 7 targets for 33 yards and a score. So not a lot of yards, but he does have a touchdown. The 4 touchdowns total that he has are almost half of the total touchdowns that he had in 2020. They had 10 that season. And remember, the Titans actually had James Robinson, picked him up off waivers, kind of led him to the Green Bowl, although he did lose that year in the Green Bowl. But AR's ayahuasca plan is going to hope Robinson gets there. And the matchup might also matter here. Goes up against the Eagles defense, which has been very good against the pass, lighting up the board for 9 sacks last week against Washington. They still allowed a lot of rushing yards in those first 2 weeks, so I suspect that Jacksonville will rely heavily on the run here to try and turn the tides. That leaves Robinson with a lot of potential, of course, if he's getting a bunch of carries. But if Jacksonville's defense plays bad and Philadelphia gets up big kind of early like they did last week, it could also backfire and leave Robinson without many carries, especially since, only 33 yards receiving. You think Etienne would actually get more work in that scenario. But I do think Doug Peterson and his staff will allow the run to not be lost. I expect a very decent game by Robinson, at least in the first half, if they could keep it close. Washington abandoned the run, pretty much didn't do any running in the beginning. I think that was why they got dominated. Moving on to my Dark Ridge Dreamers, I turn to Cordarrelle Patterson, running back, wide receiver, jack of all trades guy, listed as a running back, of course, on the depth chart. Patterson is another player experts didn't really know what to expect. He's a hybrid back. He really is a wide receiver when you look at how he came up, but he's used as a running back. And it's the opportunity in the end zone that really makes him a big play. He had 11 touchdowns last season. He also had 618 yards rushing, 548 yards receiving for a very nice yardage total. This year, he's actually off to a huge start rushing. Patterson's averaging 6.2 yards per carry, already has 302 rushing yards on 49 carries. Surprisingly, he only has 28 yards receiving so far, so if he gets the receiving numbers back on track, Patterson could be a huge surprise for 2022, kind of like last year, but even on a bigger scale. Last week, he had 148 yards and a touchdown, and he goes up against the Browns defense, ranked 13th against running backs in terms of fantasy points allowed, but just 25th against fantasy running backs in the red zone, meaning they do allow a lot of touchdowns. And if Patterson's also catching balls out of the backfield, he's going to make defenses think. I think that if he scores a touchdown, he's going to have a very big game. If he doesn't, it might be a dud, but he could still have some yards, possibly. I think that it's going to be a big key for my Dreamers to pick up a win here, though. And we have some other good matchups in the league, not just the game of the week. The multiple Scoregasms host the Siamese Dreamcats at the Secret Sea of Galanis in a Ganymede versus EO division matchup. The Scoregasms look to remain undefeated and come in with a 68.3% chance to win. The Dreamcats look to continue the momentum from a monster week 3 and will try to get the upset.
Some interesting happenings here with Buffalo taking on Baltimore and Indianapolis facing Tennessee. The Scoregasms have Josh Allen in the Titans defense and the Dreamcats have Lamar Jackson in the Colts defense. Both of those matchups could be huge here. It seems like Kupp and Kirk at wide receiver for the Dreamcats will need to match or come close to Taylor and Williams at running back for the Scoregasms as well. St. Brown is dinged up for the Scoregasms, and Akers and Pollard are in committees for the Dreamcats, so that could be another area that both could be concerned about. Don't sleep on Devonta Smith for the Dreamcats, though, after that huge week 3.
The 2-1 Elite Mother Tuckers will host defending champion Remember the Titans at the volcanic plateaus of Vulcan in another EO versus Ganymede matchup.
This seems like a big early season game for both teams, and the Elite Mother Tuckers come in with a 56.8% chance to win. Hurts, the Cowboys defense, and Tyreek Hill look to be big for the Mother Tuckers, but the need for Ekelor to live up to his draft pick also looks to be a must here. Barkley, A.J. Brown, and the Steelers' defense could be nice plays for Remember the Titans, but the need for Pitts to live up to his draft pick is another need. Perhaps they will join for breakfast with a smoked kipper or be screaming, "What a smeghead!"
2-1 Green Acres hosts winless Uncle Justy at the Lava Castle of Drusus in an EO versus Europa matchup. This one is massive for Uncle Justy, and Green Acres doesn't want to drop it either, wanting to remain in first place. The computers give Green Acres a 61.1% chance to win. Uncle Justy hopes Khalil Herbert gets to play more with Montgomery injured, and he hopes Zach Wilson is his savior at quarterback. The need for Chase and Kamara to live up to their draft picks is also an absolute must. And Butker and the Eagles defense could also come into play. For Green Acres, Najee Harris and injured Stephon Diggs and Joe Burrow look to be keys. London and whichever defense is chosen could also be a difference in a win or a loss. In another key matchup, 2-1, the Clash at Demon Head travels to 1-2 Risky Business at the Sulphur Mines of Barbara in an EO versus Europa matchup. Of course, the Clash at Demon Head's coming off that big Game of the Week win.
But Risky Business enters with a 65% chance to win here, with the matchups maybe keeping this closer than the computers think. Mahomes and Kelsey goes up against Tampa Bay, which is a tough matchup to begin with, but the game might actually be moved due to Hurricane Ian. That might mess with the projections even more. Michael Thomas is dinged up with a toe injury, and Mixon and Dillon have not done that well so far this season with a rough week 3. A touchdown or two by Kareem Hunt may be something that could turn the tables here. For the Clash at Demon Head, I look at the need for Christian McCaffrey to find the end zone, especially with the possibility that DeAndre Swift misses time with his injury. Another score by Lamb and a bounce-back performance by the Bills' defense could also be needed.
Lastly, 2-1 teams battle with the Stellar Bitches hosting Loki Lebowski Thor at the Temple of SeaTac in a Ganymede versus Europa battle.
The Stellar Bitches and Low-Key Lebowski Thor hope to bounce back after 2 straight difficult defeats, but it's the Bitches that enter with a 62.7% chance to win. Herbert is still battling a rib cartilage injury for Lebowski Thor, and the Bitches still have to go with Kirk Cousins due to the Dak Prescott injury, so quarterback could be big here. Javonte Williams versus Melvin Gordon could also be big, both running backs on the same team. Derrick Henry versus Deebo Samuel. Amari Cooper versus Scary Terry, all big. But surprisingly, I ask, will Derrick Henry score more than the Bucs defense? Both have tough matchups, and it could be the difference.
The first week of out-of-divisional play is always fun because we get some very interesting matchups in this league. And this week could actually end up factoring into the playoff race well down the line because tiebreakers are head-to-head in our league. So, you know, it could be big, but we have a long way to go, and anything can happen. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. And that's the content for the show, everyone. Hope you had fun with me. Join me for part 3 on Sunday when the Clash at Demon Head drops on by. Until next time, salut. And check out the updated standings before you go.